You're watching the Oklahoma City Thunder Squad Show. I'm Tyler Jones, and coming up on today's program, I'm going to tell you what's impressed me about Chet Holmgren and the way that he stepped up in the last few games.
I'm Rylan Stiles. I'm going to tell you why Nikola Jokic injury does impact Oklahoma City in a big way.
I'm Jeremy Lamb. I'm going to talk about SGA's ultimatum.
This is Locked On Thunder Squad Show, the twice-a-week show where Thunder talk gets real. No filters, no fluff, just raw takes, sharp opinions, and straight-up passion for the game. The way only Locked On Podcast Network knows how. Let's drop some dimes and squad up. The Thunder Squad Show starts now.
What's good, everybody? Welcome in to the Oklahoma City Thunder Squad Show. Tyler Schultz here with you. So glad to have you with us. Joined alongside Rylan Stiles, Jeremy Lamb here for our final show of 2025. And we will kick off the new year on Thursday with a special New Year's Day show. So stay tuned for that. But we have plenty to discuss today, from SGA to Chet. We'll talk about Joker's injury. Also, the keys to the bench's success as well. We'll go over that in the final segment. But, guys, let's begin with SGA. Last night, the Thunder with a win over the Atlanta Hawks. The offense was fantastic. The defense, not so much against a lowly Atlanta Hawks team. But, nonetheless, the Thunder get the dub. A very impressive third quarter in particular, where they went on quite the run, as that was kind of their way to close out that game. SGA was asked afterwards about the defense, and he delivered an ultimatum of sorts. He said, yeah, the last couple of weeks we've learned that we've got to get back to ourselves defensively if we want to win big in this league. We can't let that slip to achieve our goals. Jeremy, we'll start with you here. You get the win, but you gave up a ton of points, a lot of open threes. That's not the standard that this Oklahoma City team has set for themselves here. I would say that's a good sign when you can win. You can win by double digits, but you're not satisfied.
Yeah, it's always good when you win, whether it's pretty or ugly, because at the end of the day, 82-game season, every game is not going to be pretty, So when you can win the ugly games, when you can win when it's not going so great is a great sign. But what SGA is talking about is what they hang their hat on, and that's defense. It's no secret that they're not a great offensive team. They hang their hat on defense, and that's what keeps them in the games. That's how they won championships. That's why they have their opponents always turning the ball over, because they're swarming defensively, and it's overwhelming, especially over 82-game season. Once the season is going and going, people are tired. People are, ready to go on vacation, go home, chill with their fam, but they don't really take it like that. They know defense is what they got to do to win, and not just regular season, but win big. So I think he hit it right on the head. They can always continue to get better offensively and work on their individual games, but at the end of the day, being or hanging their hat on defense and swarming teams and making sure that's what, everybody has a mentality to do is huge. So he hit it right on the head.
Rylan, what did you make of SGA's comments? You were there in the post-game media availability last night. What did you think of what he said there?
Yeah, I think, though, with Shai, he always talks with intentionality, going back even to Christmas Day, whenever he mentioned that, you can't lose 3 times to the same team in 2 weeks and not say that they're better than you. And the Spurs were playing better basketball and we're better than the Thunder, over that stretch. And I think that with Shai, he knows that this team does need to be better defensively. And for 2 straight games now, they were not who they needed to be on the defensive end of the court in the first half against Philadelphia or in the first half against Atlanta. They did turn it on in the second half. It led to a blowout on Sunday where the 76ers could not recover from that flipping of the switch. But then against Atlanta, I thought the defense was a lot better in the second half, but Atlanta was just so comfortable and so confident that the shot making still prevailed through some really good contests. And you got to tip your cap to Atlanta. But by the same token, you also let them get that confidence. You also let them get into their rhythm as shooters. And so when they're launching these threes and hitting them, I mean, you look at the course of NBA history, whenever you make 25 threes in a single game, you're 55-6 heading into last night. Now you're 55-7. You typically win those matchups when you're able to do that. So the Thunder, like, they are rooted in being the best defense and the best defense, not only in the league, but lapping the field on that end of the floor. And a historically great defense last year started out historically great this year. And that sparks transition. It sparks easy opportunities, and it really limits the damage that you can give up. And it limits how much that you can be in the half court, where this team is not particularly great offensively in the half court. So they do need to stick to their identity. And it's hard. I mean, you look at it, and they've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with a shortened off season. They've dealt with a condensed schedule, but every team is going to go through stuff like this. And you've got to find a way, as you did all of last year and the year prior, to consistently show up for 48 minutes. And even through this tough stretch defensively, they're still atop of the NBA, 5 points better in the defensive rating category than the second best team in the NBA defensively. So they're still there. They just have to play to that level for the rest of the season.
Jeremy, you look at last night in that game against the Hawks, and the Hawks were pretty banged up. They didn't have Trae Young. They had lost 6 straight going into that. Of course, it turned into their 7th straight loss. And the Thunder, you know, they end up pulling away and winning that game by double digits in an off night. I mean, isn't that also – I know that's not what SGA wanted, but isn't that also a sign of a great team that – you're finding ways to win and win convincingly when it isn't your best performance out there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Atlanta, they have talent, and they're just, you know, they just need more reps. And at the end of the day, I feel like OKC, you know, they got the reps, they got the talent. They just, you know, continue every night to keep putting it together. So even if, you know, OKC, if they go down 10, you know, they're going to the timeout saying, come on, fellas, we've been here before. Whereas the Hawks, they might go to the timeout up 10 thinking, oh, yeah, we got this game. You know, so it's just a difference in mindset, reps, experience. And like I said, every win is not going to be pretty. You know, you gotta get it out the mud sometimes. You got to win some ugly ones. And that's when you really know if you're battle tested, what you've been through as a team, as a brotherhood, as an organization, whatever it is. So I feel like they've seen, I don't want to say they've seen it all, but they've seen a lot as a team. And so a game like yesterday, you know, they had to tell themselves, come on, fellas, we know we got to be better, but I'm happy we won this game. And, you know, we still going to learn from it.
Rylan, I feel like from SGA's comments last night to what he said about the Spurs, you know, for a guy that doesn't really say a whole lot, he kind of, you know, keeps quiet and lets guys like J-Dub and others do the talking. He seems like he's been very intentional as of late with what he has said to the media and using that as a way to kind of speak to his teammates of sorts.
Yeah, it certainly feels that way. It's like a kind of an evolution for him as a more vocal leader. And I think that the thing about this team is that they don't leave anything unsaid, whether we hear it or not. Like, this is something that they've expressed behind closed doors. Like, you ask the guys after the game on Sunday in the locker room of like, well, what changed from the first half to the second half? And they'll tell you that they came in at halftime. They saw some clips of the first half defense that they did not like and that they wanted to address, and then they kind of all rallied behind that. And this similar thing happened against Atlanta. It's just that Atlanta made some difficult shots. So saying this sort of thing to the media from Shai, yes, it is intentional to generate the graphic quotes that you saw of what he said against San Antonio and the stir that he caused last night also. But it also is things that he says to his teammates, like right in that locker room before he talks to the media. So it is intentional, and it is sort of a wake-up call of like, yeah, they have to get back to what's made them this team, what's made them the number 1 seed for 2 straight years in the West, what's made them have the 1 seed to this point in the West, which would be an unprecedented 3rd straight number 1 seed for OKC if it holds on. But the only way that it does hold on is by doing what they're best at, which is the defensive end of the floor.
Yeah, it's a very key point there. Starts with defense, and we know that's going to be critical for any Mark Daigneault coach team. With that said, Jeremy, kind of added on to Rylan's point, I want to hear from you. You've seen these press conferences and, of what players say to the media all the time there. Isn't that kind of interesting that SGA kind of speaking out a little bit more? I guess maybe with being, one of the best players in the world and kind of leader of this team, it's almost a different version of him of sorts of being more outspoken than what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely growing as a leader. But to Rylan's point, I don't think anybody on the team necessarily looked at that interview and was like, oh, like, did you hear what he said?
Yeah.
I think, like Rylan said, he probably said that before. Look, we got to be better defensively, fellas. Good win, but come on now. Like, we know what we want to do. So I've been on teams where you find out what people saying in the media on Twitter or Instagram, and that's just a unhealthy way to do it. So I don't think the stuff that he's saying is no surprise to anyone, from the coaches to the players. And even on top of that, he's not saying like they got to be better or they need it. Nah, he's saying we got to do it, as a team. So it's a good thing. And like I said, on the outside looking in, it definitely, I'm pretty sure no one was surprised at what he said. And, everybody already knew exactly what he was talking about because he had told them before.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. Rylan, when you look at this Thunder team of the defensive struggles that have gone on the last few games here, I think it's certainly something where Thunder fans should not be panicking of any sorts by any means. Like it's a lull of sorts. We know how good they are defensively, that they'll go back to their old ways in no time. I mean, even as mentioned earlier, even at the end of the night, they still won last night by double digits, convincingly here. Like this is something where I think it's an internal thing that they're looking to adjust, but big picture, it's certainly not something they won't be able to overcome.
Yeah, big picture wise, it isn't a concern, and it can't be a concern, frankly. Like, you can't play this level of defense in the playoffs and expect to win, and they know that, and they know kind of what's gotten them to the end result. I think that it is a combination of, like, you've never seen this iteration of this Thunder team play this poorly defensively ever, whether they're a play-in team or the number 1 seed or winning a championship and winning 68 games in the regular season. You've never seen them do this, but there are reasons for it. And I think that you look around at teams who have won a championship in the past. It's why that the talking point in the offseason was about the shortened offseason, about the complacency, about a championship hangover. Like, those things are tropes for a reason, because we've seen throughout NBA history that they matter and that they happen to teams. I don't think it's a case of complacency. I don't think it's a case of like a championship hangover, but I do think that, the only thing that's changed, really, the only different variable of, like, from the last couple of years where they have brought defensive intensity to all 82 games, and this year where they have slipped in some of their defensive intensity throughout games, has been the fact that you've played a lot of basketball in the last 12 months, and you've really compacted the schedule because you played until the last possible date in June and then got right back to it to start this season. And you are having a target on your back as the champion, to where teams want to make statements against this team, and you can't afford that slippage, or else it looks particularly bad whenever it does happen, because teams are so gunning for Oklahoma City, and the injuries also. So it's like it's a combination of the turnaround, the injuries, and this stretch where you've had some messy basketball in the last 2 weeks. You've also had 3 back-to-back sets in the last 2 weeks, which is hard to overcome as well. So all of that plays a factor into it. And the bottom line is, the only thing that matters is the Thunder getting that 1 seed, which they're comfortably in right now, and being prepared, fresh, and ready for the playoffs to play at this level, which you're going to have a week off for that play-in tournament games to unfold, and you're going to head into that playoffs knowing that you've got to flip it back on. And the fact that they can, it is frustrating, of course, to like see that they are capable of playing that level of defense, for example, Sunday against Philadelphia, but chose to do it for one half instead of 48 minutes. But it's still clearly in them. They still clearly are a great defensive team, and you don't have to worry about them turning it on and off come playoff time. It's going to always be on. It's just going to be something to monitor moving forward. Can they sustainably play 48 minutes of elite defense, or has just all this caught up to them at once? And now you just got to survive. You just got to survive the 82-game season and get back to the playoffs where you can really go all out again.
Yeah, it's a fantastic point. We got more to come on the Thunder Squad show. Up next, we'll talk Chet Holmgren. He stepped up. He's played some better basketball after not looking so hot, in particular against Wemby and the Spurs. We'll break that all down next as we continue here on the Thunder Squad show. Thunder Squad show rolls on. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Welcome back to the Thunder Squad show. Tyler Jones, Rylan, Stiles, Jeremy Lamb here with you on this Tuesday. Final show of 2025. And folks, before we go any further here, I want to thank you for making the Locked On Thunder podcast your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. Access to an ad-free audio feed for the Locked On Thunder podcast, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. And invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. All you have to do, folks, is go to lockedonthunder.supercast.com. That's lockedonthunder.supercast.com. Or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. All right, let's talk about Chet Holmgren now. And much was made about the way he performed against the San Antonio Spurs with back on December 23rd, just 7 points, and then 10 points on Christmas Day on December 25th. But the last two games on Sunday and Monday, he stepped up mightily. Against Philly on Sunday, 29 points, 9 rebounds, 4 blocks. And then last night against Atlanta, 24 points, along with 10 rebounds and 2 blocks as well. Rylan, Chet heard a lot of people talking about him the last couple of days with his performance against San Antonio, and it seems like he responded well.
Yeah, he has responded well, and he had some deserved criticism for how he played over the last 2 weeks, and it was good to see him fight through some of that and bounce back. And so I think that he is moving better on the court. Perhaps the back spasms were a problem, and of course the illness was a problem, but I think that ultimately it's just been him getting back to what's made him so good this season, this breakout season for him, where he has a career high in points, a career high in efficiency, career high whenever you look across the board at rebounding and you look across the aisle of what he's done on the offensive end. It's been a nature of changing a shot profile, of being more so available around the rim. He's cutting more than ever. He's rolling to the rim more than ever instead of popping. He's posting up a lot more this season. And all those things have been areas in which he's found success over the last 2 games. His guards have found him, in particular Shai. They've let him go to work and attack mismatches, but he's also taken advantage of mismatches. You saw yesterday, while it wasn't the point total that Sunday was for Chet, I thought it was equally as impressive, if not more so, because of how those buckets came from him. He took 2 threes against tough closeouts where in previous games as recently as Christmas Day. You see him pump fake and then kind of get stuck and not know what to do with the basketball because of his inability to shoot over closeouts. And on Monday against the Hawks, he did take those shots. He made the shot from three on one of those attempts, and then you saw him be around that rim all the time, cleaning up some misses at the rim on second chance opportunities, being there to catch and be the beneficiary of lobs over and over again over the last two nights, be someone who you can go to in the dunker spot or go to on the low block. And because of his combination of athleticism with his size, if you can get that entry pass into him cleanly, he can really take you from one block to the other in one dribble and get around the defense that way. I think that Chet Holmgren's done a really good job in totality this season of changing his offensive output. It's led to the success and the efficiency, a career high 57% from the floor. He's shooting career highs across the board at the rim, in the mid-range, and then at the three-point above the break line for him. Those are his areas of expertise on the offensive end. So to see him be able to respond and play a lot better is encouraging. Now it's about consistency, and part of that consistency is on Chet, because he's got to be in the right spots. Right now, you're seeing him a lot whenever he's had the successful offensive games. You're seeing him go rim to rim. He goes from the defensive end, anchoring it, runs the floor, and starts the action at the cup. And either from there goes to the dunker spot. He might float to the corner, but he also might come to the ball instead of screen. Initially, though, being at the rim versus hanging out around the three-point line has really helped him. And I think that that's a trend that has to continue. He's got to keep doing the right things in that regard. But also the consistency for Chet is partly on his teammates. You've got to hit him at the right time and find him whenever he is making those rolls to the rim, whenever he is open on the backside of a play, because his defender has stepped up to take on a driving guard like Shai or like J-Dub. And so it kind of goes hand in hand with how he can be effective and how he can be consistent. But I think that right now you're seeing even Shai start to notice more when he's available and when the defense helps off of him and find him in those positions.
There's no bigger fan of Chet Holmgren on this show than Jeremy Lamb. Jeremy, the last two games from Chet, you like what you've seen, the way he responded here?
Yeah, for sure. But I'm most impressive with his mental, because it's hard to play well in the NBA, like, period. But it makes it even harder when you seeing the media talk about you. You got the spotlight on you. Y'all, defending champs, going up against Wemby. Everybody got this high ceiling for you. And so for him to be able to block that out, for him to still just work on his game and realize who he is, and he's still growing. I mean, obviously their whole team is young, but he's a young player. The game hasn't totally slowed down for him yet. He's still learning his spots. He's still learning what he's great at. But he's got to do it in the spotlight. So the fact that he's able to do it in the spotlight, continue just to work on his game. And like you said, how he bounced back, 20 plus game, two games in a row. That, like I said, it just speaks to his mental. Obviously, we know, he's physically gifted. He got height. He can move. He's getting stronger. And when you pair that with mental toughness and mental strength, that's what I took away from it. And I feel like the sky's the limit just simply because mentally, I know he can handle whatever's going to come his way.
Rylan, we're still a few weeks from the next matchup Oklahoma City has against San Antonio. I believe it is January 17th at home, if I'm not mistaken. I know that's still a while from now, but do you believe that not only, besides the win, but Chet in particular, when we get to that next matchup between Oklahoma City and San Antonio, is it important for Chet to have a good night that night? I know we're still looking at it a bit, but that game in particular, is that night now, from what we've seen unfold, going to be a big deal for him, you think?
Yeah, I think that it is. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, you're going to be judged heavily on that game. And it's going to be a lot for Chet to just show that he can have success against San Antonio. And you're going to be overanalyzed based on everything that you do whenever you're matched up with Wemby, because the media has made that a story. And that's something that these players have to fight through whenever things like that pop up. He's also just not been good, frankly, against San Antonio. So he's done himself no favors in this regard. But you've got to show that you can have some success whenever you look at Chet and his game. It goes back to the things that San Antonio does against this Thunder roster, that they do not put a big man on him. They kind of let him just hang out at the corner. The Thunder have to bring him into more actions and try to find him available around the rim instead of being at the corner, for a guy who, whenever Harrison Barnes is closing out, isn't as confident in shooting that three over the top of these smaller defenders. Even Steph Castle and some of their guards who would fly out to him once the ball was swung to him, he wouldn't take the shot over them, and he also doesn't have really a tight enough handle to dribble from the corner all the way to the paint. And so you want to see him have a good game and have the team set him up for success. It's a very challenging matchup, but not only would a win do a lot for the Thunder to kind of calm the waters down, but even if they were to lose and go 0-4 against San Antonio to start the season, it would be a individual sigh of relief for Chet Holmgren to not have that compound on him of putting up a fourth straight bad game against San Antonio. Because you look at it, if he put together a stretch from now until January 13th of playing at this level where he's over 20 points every single night, he's really efficient, he's playing awesome basketball, again, it doesn't make it right, but the conversation will be, well, he can't do it against San Antonio, or he can't do it against a quality team. And so for his sake, he's going to have to play really well in that matchup and see if that was just catching the Thunder at the right time, where, yeah, you did beat them 3 times in a row. You also caught them whenever Jada was playing bad basketball and Chet was playing bad basketball. But now as Jada and Chet become better and have played better over this 2-game stretch, and hopefully they parlay that into a longer stretch than 2 games, like now things are different? Or is it going to be much of the same? Like, even if Chet's feeling it leading into that game, if that game is still a dud performance from him, he'll be judged very harshly by almost everyone. So I think that it is a big deal.
Chet right now is 18th in the Western Conference when it comes to all-star voting. And, he has taken the mantle as that number 2 option this year with how much Jalen Williams has been out. Jeremy, you look at Chet Holmgren here, and, he's, we mentioned, right on the borderline of being an all-star here. Do you think he deserves that? Do you think he should be an all-star based on what we've seen so far this year?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you want from an all-star. Do you want stats? Do you want somebody that's winning? Like, it's always up and down. Is it a popularity contest? Where's the game? Where's the all-star game at? It's just a whole bunch that goes into it. But at the end of the day, what he's doing this year and what his team is doing, I definitely think he deserves to be an all-star, just because, like I said, his versatility, the way he's improved, they're winning, and he's a key part of the team. Is he the second option, third option, whatever it is? I never was like in talks of being a second option, first option. I was coming off the bench. I was the 8th option. So it's like, for him to be a big part of the team, for him to be, it's hard when it's an 82-game season. You're not going to play well every game, but he's still been having a good season. And like I said, he's a key part. So yeah, I think this should be his first year, first of many, of being an all-star, because he's only going to get better. And like I said, their team is winning.
Rylan, looking at Chet in that all-star conversation, we mentioned where he's at voting-wise, but the coaches ultimately decide kind of the reserves. How does he stack up in your eyes compared to the guys he's competing with for those spots?
Yeah, I think that he'll get in. I think that when you look at the fan vote, it does matter. It is important for the fans to be able to vote and kind of feel a part of the festivities, but you also have that layer of coaches, you have that layer of the player vote and your peers voting on things. And so the respect from the coaches, the respect from the players, I think is going to get Chet in. And the historical precedent of like a team that is this good right now, where they've already collected 28 wins, the best in the NBA, and they project to continue to win from now until the All-Star break. It'll be the same case scenario for J-Dub. Like, their record is too good to only have one All-Star. And whenever Chet's playing at this level and impacting winning at this degree, and has done it consistently throughout the season in their wins, he's going to get the nod for a second All-Star bid for this Thunder team next to Shai, and he deserves it. I think that he's made such individual strides, and that he has really the individual statistics that you would expect from a guy who shares the floor with someone as generational as SGA. Like, SGA is going to soak up a lot of those stats. Chet is there to be someone who gets enough off of Shai for the Thunder to win games and be that number 2 role, not even to mention his level of defensive impact at the rim and his ability to really help this team be the top defense in the NBA. So I think that Chet will be the second All-Star for this team, and the Thunder will get 2.
Next up on the Thunder Squad show, let's talk about Joker and his injury. It looks like he's going to be out for a bit. What does that mean for the Oklahoma City Thunder? We'll explain more coming up on the other side. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto. All in one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools, or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's Robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your move, your money. Robinhood, proud partner of the Thunder Squad show. We continue here on the Thunder Squad show. Jeremy Lamb, Rylan Stiles, Tyler Jones back here with you now. Guys, let's talk Joker. Starting with you, Rylan. We got the news last night that he's suffering an injury and he's going to be out for quite a bit. He was coming off a fantastic game on Christmas in an instant classic there with Minnesota. First off, for the Thunder side of things, if Joker is going to be out for a while, how does that affect Oklahoma City here?
Yeah, I mean, with Jokic, I think that whenever you look at the Nuggets, they've had to go through so much already this season, and it's really disappointing for them because even despite missing out on Cam Johnson, Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown for multiple weeks, those are 3 pivotal starters for them. Now they lose a 4th starter, and of course, their best player and arguably the best player in the world in Nikola Jokic, and they're still the 3 seed in the West. And this has been a team that, you know, you knew that they were a good team. You knew that they're title contenders. You questioned what would be their ultimate MO when it comes to the regular season and attacking wins. And they're within a game of the number 2 seed right now. But with now missing 4 starters, you imagine that they're going to take a step back in the win column, and they could fall to that 4 or 5 seed. They're technically only 3 games up on even the play-in. I don't think that they'll make that dramatic of a decrease, but I do think that it really limits their ceiling for a team that could have gotten to that number 2 seed and maybe could have challenged OKC. They're already 5.5 games back of OKC at the 1 seed, but certainly would have been a top 3 seed had this not happened. It does suck for them as a team. It also impacts OKC because you go from the potential of avoiding San Antonio and Denver. These have been 2 of the more consistent teams when it comes to being at the top of the West standings. You've seen Houston and the Lakers flirt with being up there. They've been so inconsistent that you didn't really expect them to make that step to be a top 3 seed. And now, instead of avoiding Denver and San Antonio and only playing one of them and playing them not until the West Finals, there's a real possibility that you're going to have to play both of them in the postseason, and that you're going to have to play Denver in the second round. And we know that Denver heading into this season, and really even still after the Christmas Day win for San Antonio over OKC, still the number 1 threat and contender to Oklahoma City is the Denver Nuggets. And to have to play them in round 2, like if this goes for the next 4 weeks the way that we expect, and Denver kind of gets launched into that 4 or 5 matchup, it is massive in changing how the Thunder's outlook is for this season, especially in the midst of this NBA parity era. The past 6 champions have not survived the second round. They've also not been the 1 seed and had to play their biggest threat in round number 2 as a result of this injury. And for Jokic individually, it really sucks because this is someone who does play as much as possible, has an extremely high pain tolerance. And in this first 10 games of his career, he's played at least 69, 70 games in each single season of that 10-year sample size. Now, because of this hyperextension in his knee, he's going to miss at least 4 weeks. And that's just like getting to the next reevaluation date and getting ramped back up and getting back into play to where individually it takes him out of, likely the MVP eligibility and all NBA eligibility for a guy who's been putting up historic numbers and someone who I think that really after that Christmas Day showing against the Timberwolves had put himself in the lead for the MVP honors. Now that kind of all flips on its head at once. And so this is really, really disappointing for Denver and for Jokic. And it really does impact the Thunder in a ton of ways. Like him and Shai, the MVP race, it impacts that. And it impacts the Thunder's long-term outlook in terms of the playoff picture and the possible bracket breaking in a different way for them now.
Jeremy, I'm curious from your perspective as a former player that's, been in these locker rooms and heard these conversations in the past. Do you think there in Oklahoma City today, this is being talked about? Is this a big discussion point that the Thunder, you think they're keeping much tabs on what's going on with Joker here, this situation in Denver?
I mean, I'm sure they know, but I think it's too early in the season for it to really matter. And reason I say that, it's going to impact Denver more than anybody else, just simply because, like you said, like Rylan said, he's going to be out 4 weeks, and then he got to ramp up. And the rhythm he was in, I mean, he's averaging a triple-double. He was in a great rhythm. Now he's going to have to get his rhythm back after 4 or 5 weeks. And he's no slim guy. He's heavy. You're not going to be able to just get out there and just go off and running. You got to really ramp up. So the reason I say it doesn't hurt OKC as much or affect OKC as much, just because it's plenty of time for him to come back and find that rhythm going into the playoffs. And whether they was going to be the 2 seed or the 6 seed, whatever it is, at the end of the day, if you got to see a healthy Joker later in the playoffs, you never know. They could still home court advantage, and then you make it a series. Last year they took them, they gave them everything they could handle, and luckily OKC pulled it out. So I just think it's early in the season to really, I don't know, care about injuries, especially if it's 4 weeks, 5 weeks. As long as their team, Denver, as long as they can, hold the fort down and still be in a good place by the end of the season, then yeah. But otherwise, you never know, because he scores the ball, he get everybody involved, he rebounds, he's everything to their team. They could go from the 3 seed to the 8th seed, and next thing you know, the whole year they playing, and they trying to get in the play-in and trying to figure out if they're gonna make the playoffs. So I think it's more about, it just affects Denver. But as far as OKC, ain't nobody worried about that. They've been dealing with injuries. They know injuries happen. So it's like, okay, now it's y'all turn. Do your rehab, go get in the cold tub. We doing the same thing over here. We'll be ready when the playoffs come.
Rylan, when I look at Denver's situation, they've had such bad luck when it comes to injuries, as you mentioned earlier, and now adding Joker to the mix. It makes you think. I know this is still ways out and everything. Are things going to get better before they get worse? Is this going to be something that continues to happen and Denver's banged up when playoff time gets here? Or are they going to get healthier and then have that ramp up period to get in sync before they go to the postseason. Like there's a great unknown of what Denver team Oklahoma City potentially is going to see when the playoffs get here.
Yeah, there's still such a long ways to go, and these things do happen and can happen at any time. To Jeremy's point, the silver lining is that this did happen in December still, and you have now the 4 weeks to have him out and then get him back. But the issue for Denver would be, the one issue would be Cam Johnson and Jokic. Like, these are two guys who we acknowledge what great of a trade it was in the offseason, while also acknowledging that, like, he is replacing that Michael Porter Jr. role. Michael Porter Jr., of course, having an all-star level season himself in Brooklyn. But the problem with Denver was you got to figure out a way to get those two guys connected with chemistry over the course of an 82-game season that Michael Porter Jr. and Jokic had over the course of a half decade. And that's really hard to shoehorn in, especially now as both players are dealing with injury. And they had finally started to click a little bit whenever Cam Johnson went out, and now Jokic is out for this stretch. So I think that ultimately they'll be on the same page by the end of the season, and ultimately Denver will be to their level, whatever their highest ceiling is, and OKC hopefully will be at their highest ceiling as well when these two teams match up, which makes the possible second-round matchup a little bit more, like, you have to remember to contextualize it for whoever loses, because these are the two, number one and number two to me, contenders in the entire NBA for a championship. And in all likelihood, they're going to see this. They're going to see each other in the second round, and one of them are going to be out in the second round, obviously, in that scenario, which is not going to be your typical second round exit. So I think that it does matter a lot, and there is questions now around Denver because they had some other things working against them with that chemistry aspect and trying to find their new offense with a new coach as well. But I think that they're going to work it out.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll find a way to put it together, and we'll see where things go from there. With Oklahoma City, one of the things that Rylan mentioned was now you set up a potential scenario of playing Denver in the semifinals of the Western Conference and then San Antonio in the conference finals, which would have you playing Joker and Wemby back-to-back. Compared to before, you were looking at avoiding one or the other and playing just one of them in the conference finals. Jeremy, if it happens to work out that way of going up against Joker and then Wemby, I sure hope that the bigs are ready, because that's a gauntlet potentially ahead of facing those guys in back-to-back series.
You're muted, Jeremy.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
The West has been stacked for years.
Yeah.
And even, if they got to go against Joker, okay, then you got to go against Wemby, okay, and you got to go against Houston. Still got KD over there and a whole bunch of, young, hungry people over there. They well coached. You got the Lakers. People say they not championship contenders, but at the end of the day, you still got all-stars on that team. Reeves is averaging 29, Luka averaging 35. You still got Bron averaging 18. Like, I don't think Denver is the only threat. I think it's a lot of teams that can give them a run for their money. So at the end of the day, if they got to deal with them early, cool. They're going to have more energy, to go against a Jokic. And then, because like I said, it's stacked. It's so many different teams that can steal home court, that got great home fans. And, they, like Houston, they got a closer now in KD. They didn't have that last year. And the Lakers, everybody been elevating. So the Spurs definitely got their number right now. We don't know how it's gonna go in the playoffs, but they got their number right now. And then Denver, you can't never count out Jokic. So I think it's gonna be a great playoffs, but I wouldn't just single out Denver.
The NBA playoffs, where amazing happens. The MVP race, Rylan, you kind of mentioned it earlier with the situation for SGA. Now with Joker pretty much out of the picture here, if SGA stays healthy, is it his to lose, or is there's somebody else that you like that could make this MVP race interesting if Joker's going to be out of it for a bit here?
I think that the media will of course put Luka in the conversation more heavily now if Jokic is going to end up being ineligible, which he's trending to be now that he's going to be out 4 weeks. But ultimately, the only person who checks the boxes of team success and individual accolades and individual statistics and impact is Shai, and he will be able to waltz his way into a second straight MVP if Jokic is ineligible. In the end, this is a guy that, again, we mentioned has a high pain tolerance, and there is some optimism in Denver that he could beat this timeline that's laid out. And it wouldn't be the first time that we've seen teams put out a longer timeline than they expected. Even the Thunder last year, Chet Holmgren beat the timeline off of a fractured hip to get back quicker than they expected. So it's not out of the world of possibility, but certainly it is an uphill battle now for Jokic whenever you factor in not only the misses right now due to the injury, but the misses of, like, would it make sense to play him in back-to-backs now? Would it make sense to play him at the end of the year if your seeding was wrapped up for Denver? The likelihood of that is no, and that they'd rest him in those games anyway. So I think that this is now huge for Shai individually to be able to get his second straight MVP, because even as Luka is phenomenal, and even as Luka is going to be able to have the individual statistics, you don't trust that Lakers team to be even close to the team success required to win the award.
More to come here on the Oklahoma City Thunder Squad Show. In our final segment, we'll talk about the bench and their keys to success. What do they need to do to play a crucial part for this Oklahoma City team going forward? We'll tell you in our final segment coming up right here on the Thunder Squad Show. Rylan Stiles, Jeremy Lamb, Tyler Jones back here with you now. Thanks for hanging out with us here on this Tuesday on the Oklahoma City Thunder Squad Show. Let's talk about the bench now for Oklahoma City. And last night, it was a really good showing from Alex Caruso. And he was talking in the postgame press conference about how it's not very often that he gets the chance to put a lot of shots up, but he likes to take advantage of it when he can. He did so. 16 points, 7 of 8 from the field, 2 for 2 from three-point range. He also had 8 rebounds to go along with it as well. A.J. Mitchell, we mentioned he was banged up for a bit. He had 10 points last night to go along with 4 assists as well. And Carlson, in 11 minutes, wasn't too shabby with 6 points there for Oklahoma City. But overall, Jeremy, you were a guy that came off the bench, and you've seen what that role consists of. What are some of the things you're looking for from this Oklahoma City bench? What do they need to do to continue to be a success and be helpful to the rest of the starters here?
Yeah, I think the bench is huge. Me coming off the bench most of my career, I knew that there were times that the starters, they were tired. We're playing, I'll play 17, 18 minutes a game. They're playing 35 to 39 minutes a game. And it's cool early in the season, but as the season go on, you got to find a way to keep your team fresh and keep, energy in and out the game. And, when the bench is coming in with energy, getting steals, scoring the ball, like you said, Carlson, he only had 6 points, but he had energy plays when he had those couple dunks. Like, that gives the whole team energy to see people coming off the bench. Like I said, hitting threes, getting steals, dunking the ball, just, putting themselves on the line for the team. So I think the last couple games when I've been watching, I've seen sometimes where the team look a little tired. I've seen Shai a couple times not running back. Early in the season, you got all the energy to run back. But as time go on, sometimes it's like, let me take this play off, or let me, and that's not how OKC usually is. But at the end of the day, everyone's human. And, you get tired. You playing all these minutes, your feet start hurting, your knee, you got your tendonitis start acting up. I think if you have a full team and you're able to rely on the bench where they coming in, like I said, bringing energy, scoring buckets, it gets you energized, especially over 82 game season, and it just helps being able to go into the playoffs healthy, um, and energized as a team, as an organization, the fans, just everything. So I think they've played a huge part, because without them, they wouldn't have got off to this start. So I think they just got to keep being who they are. Everybody obviously know their role, and yeah, it's gonna bring huge success to them.
Rylan, Caruso last night. That's got to be nice for Oklahoma City, knowing that, hey, we don't ask Alex to be an offensive weapon very often, but when we do, he can step up. That not like last night, he was just ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's not saying much because he's only been here for 2 years, but when you look at last night, it was his best interior scoring game as a member of the Thunder, and it started out with what he always does. He's always someone who brings a lot of juice to the team and changes the intensity level of the game, whether he is taking it from good to elite or poor to good, whatever the notch above what it was set at as a baseline, he achieves that. And his first play was a steal and slam right out of the gate. Then he goes to the dunker spot, capitalizes a slam off of a Cason Wallace extra pass. And then playing off of Chet kicks it out to him at the top of the key. He shot fakes, goes into the mid-range, and hits a mid-range jumper. It wasn't all about the three-point shot for him. He only took 2 threes. Credit to him for making both. But he took 8 shots overall and made 7 of them. And you like to see him get the work done in transition. You like to see him be available inside the arc on the half-court offensive end of things. And then defensively, he did get a lot of the change that happened for OKC, including the game-sealing steal and dump off to Chet Holmgren at the 118 mark to win the game. So you like to see what he was able to do all around with 16 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, and 2 steals in this game. Of course, the 9 rebounds for him and the 7 rebounds for Caruso, that can largely be attributed to the amount of threes that the Hawks put up there, because the longer threes that you take and the longer rebounds that pop out are more susceptible to being collected by guards, but still impressive for him nonetheless. And I think that Caruso had a really good game.
I think so too. And one of the things we talked about last week on the show was that the Thunder were potentially becoming too reliant on AJ Mitchell because of how much the drop off was when he wasn't out there. And then they bring him back these last 2 games. He has 13 points against Philly, 10 points against Atlanta. Jeremy, it's exciting when this guy can go off for 20 plus points. We know that he's capable of doing that, but nights like last night, if you can get the 10 points, if you can get the 13 points, like AJ Mitchell getting in double figures, if he does that every time, I think that's more than enough of what this team can realistically ask of him.
Yeah, when he gets time, when he gets his reps out there and stuff like that, I mean, we've seen how dangerous he can be. He can score on all 3 levels. He takes pressure off the whole team. He's pressuring the ball on the other side. He does so many things, and I would like to see him actually handle the ball a little bit more in the second unit and let J-Dub play off the ball sometimes, because as his decision making get better, he's just gonna make it easier on J-Dub, and obviously we know J-Dub is good with the ball in his hands. So is Shai, but I feel like the adjustment they've made is they've taken Shai off the ball a little bit. And I think with J-Dub, if AJ Mitchell, can handle a little bit more in that second unit, it gives them not only a playmaker with the ball, but a playmaker off the ball. And then you got Chet in there. I just think that's a good lineup to, like I said, mix up AJ, J-Dub, Chet, whoever, is making the plays. But I love how AJ Mitchell is still being aggressive, and still, putting pressure on the defense, every time, whether he's shooting the ball or making plays for his teammates. So, yeah, I like the way he's playing the game right now.
Rylan, who's somebody on this bench that has caught your attention as of late?
Yeah, I mean, I think that Caruso's maturity of like being able to respond to that Christmas Day outing where he was just brutal offensively has been good to see from him, and it kind of can rub off on the rest of the team to make that adjustment. But I think that Isaiah Joe, even though he only went over 2 against the Hawks, I think that in totality you've seen that this season he's really impressed and has gotten a lot better this year as a movement shooter, as somebody who can take some of the pressure off of SGA, especially in that 2-man lineup with him and Shai. That's consistently been really good for this team over the past 2 seasons. But I think that Isaiah Joe has been someone who can really help this team and has kind of changed his image in the sense of what you would expect from him come playoff time. And Wiggins has gone through a little bit of a lull offensively, but the defensive improvement has been there. And I talked to Wiggins about his defensive improvement on Sunday. And like it's about the film work that he's put in and the work on his frame that he's put in to be able to stay with bigger bodies. And that's been the missing piece for him to get playoff minutes. So those 2 things in the totality of the season has really been impressive because it can really shape what this team's rotation looks like once you get to the postseason.
And the thing that I always go back to is just when you talk about the depth, we mentioned Carlson stepping up. You know, he's what, 13, 14, 15 on the bench here. I mean, and he's had some good nights, you know, the last couple of weeks here. Like Jeremy, it's with this bench, it doesn't necessarily have to be the same guy every night. And we've seen the Thunder have success with that of different guys stepping up at different points.
Yeah, it's not easy to stay ready. It's not easy to come in and produce when you don't know how long you're gonna play, if you're gonna play. So for him to stay ready on the bench, along, you know, with other bench players as well, but for him to stay ready, you know, it just speaks to his work ethic and his character, his mental. Because, like I said, it's not, you know, when I was playing, I might play 2 minutes, I might play 18 minutes. If you play 2 minutes, you still got to give it everything you got. You still got to show, look, I want 4 minutes next game, or, you know, I want 6 minutes next game. Like, you got to continue to keep pushing. And, you know, that's what him and the whole bench is doing. They know team is full, you know, almost full back. I mean, back full strength. And you got to be ready. You got to be, you know, you got to have, it's more mental than physical, because everybody's going to work out, everybody's going to lift, everybody's going to work on their game. But that mental part is where it can break you down. You know, you can really get lost in the NBA. So the fact that, you know, he's staying with it, he's staying ready, and whenever he comes in, whether it's a lot of minutes or little minutes, he's making his impact, whether that's finishing around the rim, you know, blocking shots, playing solid defense, hitting threes, whatever it is. So that's a tough thing to do. So for him to be able to do that at a high level in his role is I applaud him for that.
Oh, no question about that. A couple things before we get out of here, guys. Thanks for tuning in to the Locked On Thunder podcast, and make sure to subscribe and follow the podcast so you can get all of the latest episodes from the squad show to the daily show that Rylan has you covered here each and every day on the channel. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get the Locked On Thunder podcast ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. And all you got to do, folks, is head to lockedonthunder.supercast.com. It's lockedonthunder.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure to make your second listen NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA. Check that out there for more information. Rylan, programming notes here. We are back Thursday. We'll do a special show on New Year's Day. I think we'll be on right in the middle of the Rose Bowl, so I might need some of you in the chat to keep me posted what's going on between Indiana and Alabama. But nonetheless, we'll be live 3:30 Central Time for a normal hour-long show, and then we'll still have everything else going on the next couple of days as well, Rylan.
Yeah, I mean, you have Justin Martinez of the Oklahoman coming up to get you set for that New Year's Eve game against Portland and kind of talk about what the Thunder need to do in the new year. And then also a recap of that Blazers game Thursday morning, this squad show in the afternoon. And then we'll have another show on Friday morning to get you set for the Warriors game. So plenty of stuff to move forward, especially after that Warriors game, recapping the start of this road trip for Oklahoma City. So make sure you subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from.
Yes, anywhere you get your podcast from, subscribe on YouTube, all that great stuff there. Jeremy, good to have you back with us. We missed you on Friday last week, but certainly looking forward to doing it all again on a Thursday. Folks, have a fantastic New Year's Eve. Stay safe out there. Don't be drinking and driving, folks. And we will talk to you in the new year in 2026 on Thursday at 3:30. For Jeremy Lamb and Rylan Stiles and Tyler Jones, saying so long. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night, everybody.